Ladies and gentlemen, you know, tonight is such a special night, and I'm just so grateful to have had Ursula here, to just take a look out in this audience and to see really multi-generational just energy in this room. I see people who are much younger than myself, and I see people who are my elders here, all in the same room on the same tip. Like, that is crazy. They say we don't party like this, and this is proof positive that this is how it can go down if you have the right thing. So I'm just grateful. So thank you for being here, and thank you for watching at home. Next up on our show, I would like to have my husband come up here. You want to introduce our next guests?
Well, the next guests are legendary artists. To me, they're the forefathers of the hip-hop generation. They come before that, long before that. And what I wanted to most stress is the first concert that I ever seen as a child that I remember was The Last Poets. I guess I probably was in the 9, 10-ish area, and it was in Atlanta when I used to live in Atlanta. And I always remember it to this day, so it is an honor and a pleasure, of course, for us to be able to present them to you guys this evening. So many wonderful, wonderful contributions to the spoken word tradition that they have given us. I looked up samples of The Last Poets, and they have been sampled over 111 times by different hip-hop artists whom you love and enjoy, and music that you have partied to, and all different types of things too. So we would like to, without further ado, introduce you to Umar Ben Hassan and Abiodun, The Last Poets. The legends. The legends.
Legendary.
The legends.
Yes, indeed. Yes. Y'all see this love?
To be so, you know, Philly has always been just a real funky town. And the blackness is overflowing, always has. And I have a true love for this place because my grandfather lived here and my cursing aunt lived here.
She still lives here.
Aunt Vivian was her name. And I remember me and my brothers and my mother's Pentecostal. So, you know, she's not too down with those words. And we go see Aunt Vivian. She has some cognac in one hand and a cigarette in the other. And she answered the door and said, "How the fuck you doing, man?" We loved it. She was a trip. She died right here in Philly. Her house caught on fire. And her boyfriend, who happened to be 25 years younger than her, got out of the house. And then he had the nerve to be at the meeting when we were talking about what to do with the insurance money. Me and my brothers almost killed that man. But I remember being here as a Black Power, the very first Black Power conference ever held in this country, right here in Philadelphia. And I unveiled the poem, "When the Revolution Comes." And there's been so many wonderful moments being in Philadelphia.
Not more than I had. Oh, I had some wonderful moments here. Speaking about Phyllis.
Come on, have a seat, Phil. Have a seat with us. Have a seat with us.
Yeah.
Speaking about Phyllis, Phyllis reminds me of a red bone filly I used to have in Philly. And more than fucking her, I like the way she fucked with me because she kept me. She kept me on my toes, you know.
Absolutely.
So when I used to get off When I used to get off on that train at North Avenue, it was on, man. Because, you know, Michigan women, they got big butts. New York women, they are slick, but you Philly girls are players, stone cold-blooded players. And that's because y'all got to deal with so many gangster niggas in those ways. Well, it's good to be in Philly again. It really is, because I stayed here for a while. I lived here. I'm glad to see y'all.
You're here on a good day in Philly, too. The group has had many members, and a few of them have passed on. Can you give us the names of all the former members before we go on to give respect and honor to all the contributors of the great legacy of this collective?
The group was born May 19th, 1968, in a park in Harlem, New York. The name of the park was Mount Morris Park. It's been renamed since to Marcus Garvey Park. And on 1968, a brother named Garland Kane and another brother named David Nelson and myself went on stage. We didn't have a name, but what had happened is April 4th of 1968, Martin Luther King had been assassinated. And I had already known David, and I was very upset about the killing of King, even though I could never march with Dr. King because he believed in turning the other cheek, and I wasn't taught like that. But the fact is, I felt it was an insult that they would kill this man. And I really wanted to get a gun and start killing crackers. And then, instead of me doing that, I called David and said, this idea of a group that you want to put together, we better put it together, because if not, I'm going to become a serial killer. And he said he had met this guy named Garland Kane. And he said, I put our names on a list to read poetry for Malcolm X's birthday in Mount Morris Park. And when he told me that, I was very happy, but I was scared to death. Because, see, Harlem to me was like one big Apollo. And if you go on stage and you don't do right, the Sandman will come and get your ass off. And I was raised in Queens, so I was very nervous. But I realized that if you really want to write black poetry, you better be around black people, because black folks represent black poetry. And that's how I wrote my first piece. The group went through some changes. And ironically, the very first person to leave the group was a brother named David Nelson, who I consider to be the father of the group. And we put in his place a Puerto Rican brother named Felipe Luciano. And he is known for a very famous poem, Jibaro, my pretty nigga. Felipe became a last poet. And it was during that time with Felipe, myself, and Kane that we went to Antioch College. And this guy here, Umar bin Hassan, he was going to frisk me at my own damn concert. Because I wasn't coming in the backstage, I came in with the people. And he said, if you come in my post, you gotta get checked. And I said, this nigga's crazy.
Let me tell you the rest of the story.
Yeah.
Let me tell you the rest of the story. So, because they put me ahead of security. I'm supposed to be protecting the artists and the women and children. Well, the fact is so, this is Abby O'Doon. See, when he was younger, his voice blunders now, but it was really blunder. I'm Abby O'Doon, man. I'm one of the last poets. I said, no, brother, you got to get checked in, because, we got people, children here. We got to protect
Kevin Hart.
I'm Abby O'Doon. I can't, you got to check him in. So I just, at that time, I just raised my jacket, my, platoon army jacket, and I had a 30 and a 45 on both sides of the gun. So I said, listen, brother, you either check in or you check out. Because I'm here to protect the people. I'm going to protect black people. So he said, okay, man. Okay, I'll check there. But then, when he got on stage, his bailiwick, he just went off on me. Man, who's that crazy motherfucker y'all got out the gate? He gonna kill all of us before he kill white people. But then, when it was him doing the Felipe and Garland Kane, when they did that poetry, it really, excuse my language, it fucked me up, because I was doing a little writing there. I said, I want to do what they doing. I want to do what they're doing. So, but I had to go back to my hometown of Akron and go through little riot because the police was constantly brutalizing our fathers and our grandfathers, and we wouldn't go for it. Then I was known as one of the so-called ringleaders of the riot. And next thing I know, the Akron Police Department is sending a letter of recruitment to my house. And my mother, thank God for black women because y'all smart. She said, you know what this is about. You know what this is about, don't you? You got to get out of here. Because back then in Akron, Ohio, in 1968, they didn't shut you up. They set you up. So I left. I got fired from my, Firestone Tire Rubber. I got fired from, I didn't care anyway. But then I didn't have no more money because I stopped hustling because I was a nationalist now. I'm black. I don't hustle no more. All my beaver skins and my Hickey Freemans and everything is gone, brothers. How I'm gonna get out of here? I ain't got no money. So I pawned my sister's record player. Remember that record player had the little 33s that would drop? So at that time, I got it for $25. And at the time, a ticket from Akron, Ohio, to New York was just, it was $15. So I got $25 for the record player. So I had $10. When I hit Pittsburgh, I bought a little food. But when I hit Port Authority, I just had 22 cents in my pocket and 3 or 4 poems and a pair of jeans in a bag. I know Dune told me when he saw me, I was looking like little Lord Fauntleroy when he first met me, because I had on this old wood coat. But I came halfway across the country to become a last poet, and I did it.
Wow. Did you guys feel like you were pioneers as this was happening? Like, when you were recording early, did it actually dawn on you that you were becoming the innovators of a movement that will go on to birth a whole nother generation of musicians?
My goal, my thing, I wanted to be a part of the Black Power movement because that made sense to me. I was raised like a Black Power child.
Right.
Because my father believed that you should have, God bless the child who's got his own.
Yes.
And that self-determination was a part of the way I was raised. So when the Black Power movement came on the scene, I thought I had to be a part of it. And then when they killed Dr. King, there was nowhere else to go. It was clear. So I didn't really think about the future as much as I was thinking about right then. I wanted to do something right then. And my spirit called for action, and the only way I could see myself really getting involved. The only problem was, and I like to say this to the entire audience, is that the brothers who I admired back in the day, they were older than me, and they would say, well, you know what Chancellor Williams says in The Structure of Black Civilization on page 239? You know what Frantz Fanon said in The Rest of the Earth on page 236? I had never read the books. I didn't know what they were talking about. Well, you know what Harold Cruz said in The Crisis of the Negro Intellectual? I read more books to be a revolutionary than I ever read to be a college student. I read about 6 major books in less than 5 months just so I could have a conversation with black folks.
And there was another reason we read so much then, too, because there was a lot of charlatans and bullshit niggas going around talking about how black they was and sprouting certain things. So if you read correctly in the correct books, so as soon as somebody started, you could check them. See, because we checked each other a lot back then, sometimes nicely, sometimes physically. But so we read a lot back then, and I like to read anyway, so it was a good thing to read. It was a good thing to be able to read all these books and learn about our people, and, it was important. It's important always to read. You should read.
But the group, what happened, what really took us, I guess, to the next level was, because Garland Kane had said we're never going to record. The minute that we record, we're going to be in the bucket with the rest of this crap, and we're not recording on us. We're trying to change minds, and he was the aesthetic. He gave us our aesthetic. He made it clear you couldn't get on stage and just do some bullshit and call it poetry. You had to know what poetry was about. It was clear. And it was very special, and we had that heartbeat, which is the drummer, and that's Elijah was our heartbeat at the time. And matter of fact, Elijah had a thing. If you got on stage and you did a poem that was supposed to be in the group, and Elijah wasn't feeling that poem, and he didn't open up his duffel bag with his drum and start playing behind your poetry, your poem, you might as well throw that shit away. And that happened to me one time, and I thought that was cold-blooded. Because, I just knew this poem was hot. I wrote this poem about them niggas out in Queens where I was raised, and I called it Get Hip. I typed it up on my grandfather's typewriter, a Remington typewriter, and it was a 2-page typed up poem. And I got on stage and I read it with all kinds of feelings. At least I thought I did. Elijah never looked at his goddamn duffel bag. He never paid no attention. And then after I finished, came and said, "We're not reading that bullshit on stage, nigga." You know what you want to do to a nigga that says that about your poem? Yes, I wanted to hurt him. But I had to go back and look at the poem and say, yeah, this is bullshit.
You know, the name of the group, The Last Poets, it really is a reference to a poem about getting rid of, no longer doing poetry, basically in a time of war.
The brother, unfortunately, Lil Willie, which is what we call him, his name was Kelpetsi Kokasili. Mm-hmm. He died last week. He, along with Hugh Masekela and Y.T. Walker, died within 3 days of each other.
We didn't mention Hugh.
Last week. And it was his poem, which is on page 235, in Black Fire, a great anthology that everybody should try to get a hold of the writings of the 60s, plays, short stories, poems, essays. It was edited by Leroy Jones and Larry Neal, and it's called Black Fire. There's no anthology that can touch it. It's off the chain. On his poem, it's called Towards a Walk in the Sun, and he's describing how horrible the conditions were for South Africans to live under that apartheid regime in South Africa. And at the end of the poem, he changes the font from small to big capital letters. And he says, "This wind you hear is the birth of memory. When the moment hatches in time's womb, there will be no art talk. The only poem you will hear will be the spear point pivoted into the punctured marrow of the villain, and the timeless native sun dancing like crazy to retrieve rhythms of desire, fading into memory." And then David Nelson added, "Therefore, we are the last poets of the world."
You know, that's deep. I mean, you just told a story how somebody took you through changes about a poem, but I'm gonna tell you let me tell you another story. When I first doing, I didn't have no place to stay. So he got me some place to stay. About 2 weeks later, he got me staying at the Alamac Hotel, which is a place for black students who couldn't afford to stay at City College.
He had no place to stay. He had no food money. He had no girlfriend. He had shit.
So I know.
He had them poems.
Yeah. Now let me see. I know I came. So I got into the place. I was sneaking in at first, but after a while they let me in. So I know I come to be a last poet. So about a week later, and Elijah come down and he said, "Omar, you want to do something?" So I said, "Yeah, because I want to be a last poet." So introduced him. Here's a brother here from the Midwest. We're going to let y'all decide whether he becomes. I'm the only one who was decided by the people to come in the last poet. Everybody else knew each other. So I had like, 3 poems. One was called Nigger Town. One was called MF. You know, then I had another one. I can't remember that. So, but you know I did the MF poem, don't you? So I did so-and-so. Martin was a so-and-so MF, and Huey was a so-and-so MF, and Malcolm was a so-and-so MF. And so everybody said, "Oh, he's a little rough, he's crude, but put him in a group." So Dune said, "Yeah, okay, Omar, you're going to be in a group, but you ain't never doing that motherfucking poem again." And I haven't done it in 50-something years.
Umar came to the group.
But I asked the question really because I just so curious, like, you know, when you're, it kind of, to me, spoke on that in times of war, when you're in conflict, that there is really no place for art. Not completely, but that at that moment, that art becomes something that's, you're thinking about survival. Many people have talked about even the current situation that we are in is a time when either we need to not pay as much attention to entertainment or things that people call art and be more focused in quote-unquote distractions. What do you think is the role of art in a time of war, in a time of conflict?
Well, you know, art has always been like it's kind of like, it echoes the sentiments of the people. And if it doesn't, it's really not art. I mean, when we're going through changes as a group of people, we're going through some major oppression. the poet, the musicians, the visual artists, they have got to reflect those changes that the people are going through. And they've got to, like, make it clear. And the poet, you see, the poet really is not going to tell you anything brand new, but the poet will make you see what you look at every day in a way you have never looked at it before. We're going to open up your eyes a little bigger than they were opened before. So the poet's responsibility is, we've never been in a luxurious situation where we can have art for art's sake. Our art has got to be purposeful, has got to have some direction, has got to move us to the next level. And we've been doing that all of our lives. When we sang the blues, there was a reason for it. We didn't just sing it because it made me feel like I ain't got no money, I ain't got no honey, and so I'm going to sing this sad song. There was a statement being made there that would lift you higher. And when we created that stuff, we were actually creating medicine so that we could feel better about ourselves. And so our art, the poet, all the artists, the jazz musicians, the visual artists, the dancers, all had to respond to the situation and the circumstances that black people were facing.
And see, understand, rhythm is a very important thing to us. It's a very important thing to anybody because rhythm is about life, the rhythm of life, the rhythm of song. Because, you know, when
Y'all heard it.
When they brung us here and shackled us on the boats and raped us, they tried to take away our rhythm. But then in the fields picking cotton, we picked it up with singing songs with each other. Or the brothers who worked on the slave, and the brothers who do on the roadway, you know, boom, zoom, boom, you know, boom, zoom, boom, boom, or the chain gang, or the brothers. So that rhythm, that's what kept us alive, and that's what keeping us alive right now. The fact that we still have this rhythm that is international, intergalactic, and our ancestors are still watching and say, y'all got a rhythm, y'all got to get back in rhythm, because their rhythm that we've tried to imitate and be part of has made us sick.
Speaking
It's
of
made
rhythm,
us sick.
was hip-hop something that you guys embraced from the beginning, or did you have apprehensions about it?
Well, I always told the brothers it's about the beat. When people ask me about it, I said, just listen to the beat. Don't worry about what they're saying. Don't get upset about what they're saying, because it was the beat. Because these kids back
rhythm
then,
again.
they were, yeah, it's back to rhythm again. That's what I was, just listen to the beat, because the beat is African. They were African. Now the words, you know, they had to catch up to that, and some of them cool and some of them couldn't. But I always tell them, just listen to that beat, man, because that is us. They knew what they were doing, and maybe unconsciously they didn't know. But it was part of our history. Hip-hop is part of our history. Some of us may not like that, but it's part of our history.
I always say hip-hop was actually a Rolls Royce of a creation. The problem is that you got to watch out for who the driver's going to be. Because you can have a nice Rolls Royce and have the wrong driver, and that bad boy can be a wreck before nightfall. And that's the only problem. There's some folks in hip-hop who I have nothing but love for. Rakim, for example. KRS. Chuck D, for example. Melly Mel, who gives us mad love on our CD, Holy Terror. I mean, Melly Mel, no. And when I came into the studio, I'll never forget how he was bowing down. I said, Melly, get out of here with that crap. I said, didn't you come up with Don't Push Me, 'cause I'm close to the edge. I'm trying not to lose my head. Ha, 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 ha.
The message.
Come on, y'all. The message. So there's some brothers and sisters who have said some things. I love, and when Queen Latifah did UNITY, yes, that was very important. I mean, so the message is being given, and hip-hop is followed through. I've never endorsed myself being a hip-hop artist, but I do understand how we had that influence on them. And I appreciate them. And Umar and I, we've never scorned our brothers and sisters in that world of hip-hop. Whereas some people say, those kids are stupid. I've never done that. That's out of order. Those are our kids. Those are our kids. The New York Times actually sent me to California to spank Ice Cube. And I didn't know what they were trying to do because Sheila Rule, the editor of the fucking New York Times, she was with me. And I'm sitting there in this place, School of Knowledge, eating fish and chips. And we're talking about bitches. And I said, yeah, but sisters act like a bitch. That's what you got to call her. She's a bitch. And so we started laughing, 7-5. and we talk about niggas and stuff. And at the end of the day, Sheila says, I don't think my editor's going to like this article. I said, what do you mean? You and Cube seem to be agreeing. I said, oh, I get it. I was supposed to pull out the paddle with the holes in it and spank him. Oh, I said, I can't do that. He's my kid. I said, well, I look like I might as well spank my damn self. I said, the Last Poets used nigga for days. Nobody could out-niggify the Last Poets.
Out-niggify? You can't
No,
out-niggify me.
no, it's true.
I will make sure that I cite you as a reference.
Whenever you utilize
Ladies and
that
gentlemen,
terminology.
when you hear me say it, I make sure I give you your credit. No, but I think that's profound what you're saying, because really now that all of us are in our 40s and headed towards our 50s, there is a very interesting conversation with us as as a generation of hip hop and how we discuss the next generation, and not always with fuzzy words of love and acceptance. Right. So I think it's really, really a beautiful thing to hear you say that and giving us all some guidance on how we should approach the following generation. I'll go back a little bit. While you guys were, at one point during your career, you all were placed under the program COINTELPRO, Counterintelligence Program, which I'm sure you all had that dossier and all kinds of different things going on.
When it was just me and Jalal working together, we had people stopping us on the street, and people like I'd be at home and I pick up the phone and somebody would say, well, Ma, I love This Is Madness, the rendition of This Is Madness. I came with to see this. We knew who they were. I mean, we knew who they were. And then once, about 10 years ago, I was in Columbus doing school, working in Columbus. I had a friend of mine who worked at the radio station in Ohio State University. And he asked his friend, why don't you go out and get some of the files that they had on us? I don't know. I know they had some things on us, but the white boy went back and brought out, the Department of Defense, Richard Nixon had us, some other departments, this department was watching us. And, because there were, a lot of people know how powerful the Last Poets were. We did not even know at the age, because we got to people. We could really get to people because we were young and we were unafraid, and we had the groups of people's mind, and we were how much depth it was. We didn't know that, but we really did. But we was just, we wasn't scared of nobody, though. They didn't never scared us, because, it was like, if you're really going to talk some shit, you better come do some shit, because if it look like you're going to do some shit, I'm going to do some shit first. See, that's what we said. So, we never, it wasn't that we got scared of them. We just kept doing what we were doing. We kept doing the poetry, because the different groups, we made a very distinctive choice back then too, because all the groups wanted the Last Poets to be part of them. The Panthers was after us, the Nation of Islam wanted us, and this group wanted us because we had we had a rivalry. The people loved the Last Poet. Pimps, hoes, numbers, one, everybody. Everybody loved the Last Poets. And so whoever had the community at large. So whoever had the Last Poets in their group had a large contingent and had voice to the people. So, but we made a distinctive thing. So no, we don't belong to no group. We don't belong to no group. We want to be able to do something with any other group. Ask us to say, can we do a benefit? We can say, yeah. So we want to say, well, I can't hang out with y'all because y'all don't believe in what we believe. So we made that. I don't know if it was Allah made it, or it was just our own reason, but we always made ourselves to stay independent so we could work with other people if it came down to it.
And that Umar just described was the actual premise for what got the group together. Because David Nelson had made it clear a year before the group actually was born that he wanted to do a collective of poets from different walks of life to give an example to black people of how critical it is for us to have unity. I don't care if you're a Muslim and you're a Christian and you're an atheist. It doesn't matter. We got to get together. We all got the same foot on our necks. And so it was just a matter of shelving those differences and coming together to get rid of a major problem that we were all faced with. And it was, that is still what Umar and I echo. And he's right. We never joined any organization because of that. And folks try to do that. And you're talking about the COINTELPRO and our surveillance. I was in prison for robbing the Klan, all right, down in North Carolina. Oh, yes.
Robbing the Klan?
Yes, the Ku Klux Klan, yes, sir.
I'm not going to tell y'all about that story. I'm going to let him tell you that one.
And the fact of the matter is that I'm sitting in prison, in Central Prison in Raleigh, North Carolina, and I get a call to the back hall. Back hall was where you had visitors. And I knew that my wife wasn't coming to see me. And I go down to the back hall, and it's a little white man named Mr. Greenberg. And he says, I was assigned to you in 1968. And I said, assigned to me? I said, what are you talking about? I'm a poet. We know, but what you were saying was kind of subversive, and we thought we should keep an eye on you. And I'm a part of a village in South Carolina. It's called Oyotunji. It's a Yoruba village that still is in existence in South Carolina. They sent a spy guy, a black spy guy, to the village, and he disappeared. And so Mr. Greenberg came to the prison to talk to me to find out if I knew about the disappearance of this guy. I'm saying, since you know everything I've done since 1968, and I'm sitting up here in prison, what in the hell would make you come here asking me? He says, because he says, your wife is a part of this, what is it called, the Yoruba religion? I said, yes. And you get letters from her on a regular, I said, listen, I don't have no idea what you're talking about. I said, first of all, you got to realize something. If you guys sent a black spy down to the Yoruba village to check on what the brothers are doing, I said, those folks know magic. That guy, he could be poof, he could be in the air. I said, we could be breathing him right now. I said, there's no way in the world that he's going to, I said, before he got off the plane, they knew he was coming. I said, they read. I said, you need to study Ephod definition. I said, you're not dealing with people who don't know. They know before it happens. I said, and what in the world would make you think I'd tell you if I did know something? He said, well, you got 12 to 20 years, and we're the feds, and we can cut that in half. I said, oh, really? I said, you know what? I've already set my sights for 12 to 20. I said, I'm sorry. And I don't know anything. You know what he started doing? I went to school with this guy. What's his name? We used to call him Big Lou, but he's got a different name now. I said, oh, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. So he started talking about that. I guess that was supposed to soften me up. I said, I just looked at him and said, I'm in prison. My mind is clear. Forget your little games. It's not going to work. But Umar told me about his personal agent. Each one of us was assigned an agent. Each one of us. And we are poets. But if anybody knows the history of poets, poets have the greatest influence on the masses of the people.
Power of the spoken word.
And that's always been the case. In every single culture throughout the world, the person who's the most dangerous in that community happens to be the poet.
The timelessness of the messages in your material speaks volumes, and it's as if you could have recorded a lot of the material that you have from the past today, and it still will be relevant. What do you attribute that to?
Oh, man, I mean, poets, I think if you're a poet, you automatically have a little prophecy in you. You can't help it. Because you're discussing now. And when you really break down what's going on right now, you're also talking about what's happening in the future. Because everything is connected. The past is connected to the present, and the present is definitely connected to the future. And as a poet can describe that better than anybody. That's a part of our legacy as being poets. The fact that we're going to investigate life in its entirety. Not just a piece of it, but the entire picture. I mean, there are people who walk up to me and say, automatic, systematic, remote control, synthetic, genetics, command your soul. Automatic, I mean, that is ridiculous. I mean, that is, because that's exactly where we're at. And that was written, what, about
47 years ago.
47 years ago? And that's where we are at. And the men will look like the women, and the women like the men. And then, I mean, come on. We said that. And this is being endorsed. I mean, it's amazing. And all we were trying to do was tell the damn truth as we felt it and as we were experiencing it as men in America.
And see, too, it's a blessing that both of us are still here to be able to do this.
Living Black history.
And especially me, because I have been some places and did some things that, I had no business doing, and I thought I did have business doing. About like 15 years ago, I had to start to go inside and find out, why are you so crazy, motherfucker? Why you just do wild-ass crazy shit, man? What's up with that, man? And I had to go in and look at myself, because, if you keep blaming somebody else for your own bullshit, all you're doing is just becoming a bigger victim. You stay a victim when you constantly blaming somebody else. Well, the white man is a Jew, this, and them, that, and this, or that, and that. All you're doing is becoming a victim. You ain't changing. So you really, basically, because my grandmother always had to think about it. You got to be responsible for your own dumb shit. And if you can't be responsible for your own dumb shit, then all you're doing is becoming a bigger victim, because you can't put your own dumb shit off on somebody else. You got to go on yourself and start looking at things. And I looked inside myself, and I know how to be a nigga. Oh, I like being a nigga, too. I was good at being a nigga. All my friends knew it. My enemies knew it. So I'm saying, well, why you want to be a nigga, man? You supposed to be a last sport. You got to change some of this. You got to get rid of it. Because I could be something to deal with, So I just had to start working on myself. I had to start going in here. And, and now at the age I'm at, I'm 16, I feel so much better that I have gone into myself. Because you just can't keep living on blaming somebody else for who you are or what you're doing. You got to go inside. And that's why I look at black people. We got to stop blaming so much everybody else. Because, we talk about we ain't got no money, but we give our money to everybody else. We give our money to the Arabs. We give our money to the Chinese. We got money, but we give it away to everybody else. But so what makes us that we can't get to keep the money ourselves? Because we're so petty with each other. We self-hatred with each other. We're jealous of each other. We're jealous of each other, and we just don't want to seem like they know how to get together and do things. But see, the thing about me and Duna is that everybody knows that we're two different. We are two different personalities. When we first got back together, we was like almost going at each other with bats and stuff. But Baba, you can see how big Baba was. Baba would say, "No, y'all stop it." But we, so we got to the point where we realized, well, we're doing this, man. Let's work together. You, Abiel, Duna, Umar bin Hassan, and we've learned to do that. And that's probably one of our greatest things. Everybody else knows that we are two different personalities. But when it comes to working on stage and spouting who we believe in, trying to help other people, we are able to do that. And I am proud that we're able to do that.
Matter of fact, I would say this to y'all. We are the longest tenure of the Last Poets since the Last Poets got started. Umar and I have made a second comeback about almost 30 years ago. And we are running around the world performing, and even though we have gotten on each other's last nerve, this is my brother, and I would die for him.
We're running a little long, and we apologize that you guys have collaborated with many hip-hop giants, including some of the names that you mentioned, like Chuck D and Common, and many others. How does it make you feel to be embraced the way that you are by that hip-hop community?
Well, we like the fact that some of them recognize who we are and what we've done and that we were the beginning. Because the thing about it, everybody can always talk about, we the progenitors and the godfathers of hip-hop, but people will never tell you how much we changed the record industry. Because when them albums started coming out selling like that, words with music, with drums, that had never happened before. They had to get certain different teams in the record business to work with. They had to start thinking of different ways to market this word. So when we came along and hip-hop came along, all those people became in place, because we didn't have all those people in place when we were doing words. But that's why hip-hop made so much money, because we put them words out with them drums and them words, and it just messed people up. The records there. So, but I know. but it's we really hit. We just not just hip hop, but the whole record industry. We changed it up.
Matter of fact, we're the first group in America to actually put the words on the inside cover of an album, and it seems. If you those of you who do not have the very first album, which is called The Last Poets, matter of fact, I always travel with merchandise if anybody wants to purchase anything.
Yes, absolutely.
So the fact is that I wanted the words to be on that first album, because I just thought that we were talking so fast that nobody was going to be able to understand what the hell we were saying. And I remember Alan Douglas, the producer, he said, "Why do you want the word?" I said, "Because I want people to understand what we're saying." And then Umar and I happened to be in D.C. about 20 years ago, And this woman called up and she says, I just want to thank y'all for helping me raise my boys. So I looked at Umar and he looked at me, ain't me, man. I said, sister, can you please explain yourself? She says, well, I said, I have 2 sons and I'm a single mom. And when they'd act up, I would put them boys in a room with a speaker and I'd lock the door. And the only thing I'd play is The Last Poets and Malcolm X. She says, and the only thing they could read was the liner notes on the Malcolm X album and the words of The Last Poets. And she says, don't you know the boys' reading scores went up?
Let that go and get them in the spirit. There you go.
They could do that, and I've tried to tell some of the educators that I work with, they could do the same thing with hip-hop. I don't care if the person's done a hip-hop record where they say motherfucker 20 times. Make them read it 20 times. Then maybe they'll realize how stupid it is. That's all they said was motherfucker. The fact is that there is a way to elevate the mind if we use some black creativity. And we have that. And there's so much that we can do still. But I'm very proud of the fact that we, like Umar said, we have been innovators in many, many ways in terms of the whole record industry, not just hip-hop.
I want to ask this question because we talked about Prince in the last thing, and Prince was all about ownership. You guys have put so many creative contributions into the world and have been sampled and utilized in different material. Did you guys have ownership of that music from back in the day? Because even if you didn't, by now it seems like the statute of the limitations should be up. Yeah. You should be able to. So do you receive credit as well as financial things from these records that get sampled?
I have this group called Royalty Recovery. They're beginning to recover some of my stuff all over the world now. And I'm beginning to get a little money here and there. Right. You know, I'm bringing it to, so it'll be under their guidance, it will be under my guidance. So that's happening. You know, a little bit, we run into people, well, basically people, they didn't stole it from us so much they can't use it anymore. They wind up giving it to us anyway now because they think they made so much money out of it. But, you know, and talking of Prince, you know, we got a new album. I just wrote a poem for Prince on this new album.
It's a classic.
We because you know Prince was a Midwestern boy like me, but I love Prince. Yeah. I mean Prince, man. I mean his whole thing about sometimes when we be on stage with the white girls and the brothers and all that, but people thinking it's all sexual. No, Prince was talking about if you find somebody you in love with, no matter what color it is, love them. Just love them and be happy and don't worry about what some other motherfuckers saying about you or what they thinking about you because that ain't it. Because he was a statesman and he did it with music and the way he on stage. So when he died, I cried for about 2 days. You know, because the thing is that when he made that movie, Purple Rain, yes, my father was a musician, just like his father. And my father used to beat up my mother. My mother was a light skin, just like his mother was. And there was a Jerome in the movie, and my name is Jerome. So I'm saying, what this nigga, what is, yeah, I'm saying, who is this nigga?
Is he trying to talk to me,
I'm saying, yeah, he trying to talk to me? And so, I know we were supposed to meet him one day. We went to Minneapolis, and we was at his club.
We were at First Avenue.
So I get there, because I'm asking everybody, I get there, yo, man, can you see Prince? Somebody show me Prince, man. He said, well, you know, he usually don't be around, and he was out. But then we did the show that night.
And he was in the back.
You know, if I could put my hands on him, I was just like, because you know, but you know, I can't see you ain't here. But somebody, one of the stage hands came back after the show and said, did y'all see Prince? I said, man, he ain't here. People say, he's right back there watching y'all, man. He was a fan. His people told us he.
As he should have been. As he should have been.
Well, I was a fan of his, man.
You know, I say that we you know, we talked about this earlier that, you know, as an artist, if the one thing most artists have in common is what records their parents had in the house. Yeah. And we'll all sit around and talk about that. And that's one thing that you'll find. If you sit around in a group of artists, I don't care if they're hip-hop artists, singer, whatever, we all have the Last Poets album in common. That record was in our house growing up. That is the far-reaching influence that you've had, not just on hip-hop artists, but for all of us.
You know, I was here, we got the I Am Award here in Philadelphia some years ago. And when I went to the awards ceremony, at my table was Billy Eckstein. So I was freaked out. Mr. B is at my table? And he looked, like he looked as distinguished as and he was always like just a distinguished looking, good looking elderly brother. So I had to get up and I went over and I spoke to him. I said, Mr. B, I'm a big fan. I mean, I've always been a big fan. He says, aren't you one of the last poets? I said, yes. He says, what you said on stage is stuff we would say backstage. And that really was a super endorsement because you never think somebody like Billy Eckstine is listening to what we're saying. I mean, but this is proven throughout. Everybody has, now, I've got a major suit going on right now. And I hate to say it, but it's against Biggie's estate. Because everybody thinks Biggie came up with party and bullshit. And consequently, it's been used like a hoe without a pimp. All over.
You notice in that movie, All Eyes on Me, about Tupac, I just watched that and heard it the other night.
Yep.
I hate to tell you that, but I did.
And the deal is that, like right now, the lawyers of his estate are trying to play some kind of funny cat and mouse game with us because they say, well, Biggie's dead and he's nobody, but you're all collecting. And so we had to put their names in the suit. And I really could not see myself suing Biggie at first because when I found that he was using my stuff, we were in Italy and found that Biggie had died. And my thing was I didn't want to take no food out of his wife's mouth and his daughter's mouth. And I mean, I just let it alone. And the thing about it, me and Baba Tunde were walking down the street. In Italy, in Imola, Italy, white folks ride bicycles. And they have the baskets in the front, and they had these flowers in the baskets. And they were taking these flowers down the magazine stand. And I said, let's go see who this is. Walk down there to the magazine stand. There's this big, beautiful picture in the gold frame of Biggie Smalls.
They thought it was mafia.
Yeah, right.
They thought called Junior Mafia. Because Italians love the mafia.
And
they don't love the Pope. They love the mafia. They do.
He had on that pinstripe suit with the fedora hat. And they were like mafioso. And then the guy, Mauricio, the promoter, he says, don't he look like Hannibal to you? They know. We don't know. They know. Biggie was revered. I couldn't sue him behind that. But when my son, about 3 years ago, pulled up this bitch Rita Ora, does this piece called This Is How We Party, and about 29 times she says, party and bullshit, and I said, nope, this shit's got to stop now. And so, you were talking about copyright. That's when I found out that Alan Douglas, the guy who produced our very first album, had his name next to all my shit. So I did not own my shit, but I do now.
And you mentioned that Billy Eckstine, it was a thing to you to know that he was listening, but we've all been listening. And we all love you guys, and we could sit here for hours and hours and hours with the history and the legacy that you have given us, so graciously given us. But I would love for you guys to close out with a few pieces. And God willing, we'll be able to have you back.
Okay,
again.
Dune is going to do the first one.
Okay,
no problem.
You mind? Do y'all mind?
Last poets.
Yeah, just give me something. I don't care what you do. Time has come for us to be who we're supposed to be. Time has come to find our way to be free. time has come for us to be all that we're supposed to be. No one can stop us but ourselves. We create heaven, never hell. We have a reason for the changes we go through. We must understand it makes us stronger in everything we do. Time has come for us to know where we're coming from. We've got the power to make a change. We've got the strength to rearrange. Time has come. I just had to do that with this music. I love the music, y'all. Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Time in becomes time out. Group anxieties become personal doubt. Expressing ourselves in dots and dashes, pure cocaine and false eyelashes. Living inside words that seem to lie. Living inside excuses that pass us by. Living inside loneliness becomes a high. Living gets mixed up with wanting to die. A daily question of going insane while we torment one another trying to ease the strain. Dreaming of tomorrows we'd like to know. Repressing our thoughts but wanting to grow. The heart and soul are not involved. Idle chatter becomes reality while problems go unsolved. Prearranged, prefabricated, and preconditioned. We're baptized, advertised, and posthumously mentioned. Weaned and groomed for the glory of applause. Living off the mercy of unwritten laws. Shell-shocked patrons making peace with God while I'm not throwing of a monkey's nod. Shell-shocked patrons making peace with God while a mind of a junkie's nine. Turned into robots through the power of suggestion, we seek an answer and become the question. Afraid we might die before we live, blessed with life but then afraid to give. We want to be amorous, glamorous, and larger than life. Our cheap illusions become high-priced strife. Losing ourselves in times of despair, becoming self-defeaters of unusual flair. We rush towards the beginning that might be the end. We sit in the darkness and try to pretend, pointing fingers while our insides bleed. Committing suicide to fulfill a need. Highly intelligent in a very low way. We speak of resisting but have nothing to say. We touch religion and make it seem like hell, but then we touch unholy dreams and wish them well. Faith is replaced with apathy and grief. Indifference is made acceptable and then a belief. Our left eyes all glitter while our right are blind. We submit to this madness and hope it is kind. Distraught women seeking compassion while turning tricks in high woman fashion, finding love at the expense of losing their cool, looking for happiness but finding a fool. Their moments of trust become deceitful charms, one night stands in strangers' arms, carousing with disaster in very high places. Carousing with disaster in very high places while cutting off noses to spite their faces. While the men play games of power and glory, tattered remnants of an old war story outside themselves, inside their heads, top secret discussions on waterbeds. Men without neither rhyme nor reason, lost in the depths of mental treason, abstract victims of the American dream, victims of a subtle but disguised scheme, victims of a dangerous but scheming game, rugged individualism with a psychotic name. We confuse the normal and we exalt the extreme. We make war a reality and call peace a dream. American contradictions in black and white. We illuminate contradiction and call it the light. America provides you with fortune and fame while stealing your soul for its own acclaim. With the English language at its command, it perpetuates illusion throughout the land, running big game in tiny print. Before you've got it, it's already spent. Making sacrificial lambs of the middle class, indulging in rhetoric with his head up, but lulls you to sleep with the 6 o'clock news, and then wakes you up and spoon feeds you blues. But from the darkness of ourselves, we can find a brighter day. Understanding and truth must show the way. To understand that every man's color will not be as hard. To go inside yourselves is where it must start. To learn to be considerate, to learn to be humane, to learn to use power and not be complaining. To understand you can be strong and not be crude. You can be outspoken and not be rude. To revile the tyrant, to protect the weak, to ensure the innocent their right to be looked, to be meek, to look on the sea and understand its motion, to understand tenderness and give it devotion, to understand courtesy and to make it a pact, to understand what love is and make it a pact. Because we all must struggle, we all must try, because somewhere in the future we all must die. But to leave a legacy which will long unfurl, that ours too was a struggle for a better world.
Ladies and gentlemen, the last poets. We want to thank you, brothers.